There's a kind of person who can sit in a room full of people screaming at a screen, watching the game-winning shot, and feel nothing. Not judgment, not boredom, just silence where everyone else feels fireworks. For years, people have called this not being a sports person, like it's a personality quirk. But that phrase hides something much deeper. A hidden wiring difference most people never think to look for. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's happening inside that brain. There are 6 real, science-backed reasons some people never connect with sports culture. Reasons rooted in neuroscience, psychology, and childhood. Most explanations give you one. We're giving you all 6, and saving the most powerful one for last, because it quietly explains almost every other reason on this list. Let's start with the brain itself. Every human brain runs on a reward system, a part that lights up when something feels exciting, unpredictable, or meaningful. For sports fans, competition does exactly that. The uncertainty of the score, the roar of the crowd, the feeling of us versus them fighting for something. It all triggers a real, measurable flood of emotional reward, whether the fan realizes it or not. But here's the twist. In people who don't care about sports, that same reward system isn't rejecting sports out of choice. It simply doesn't register them as exciting in the first place. The brain scans the game, the noise, the tension, and finds nothing worth reacting to. It's not resistance or superiority. It's a completely different internal wiring. And that's only reason number 1 on this list. Reason 2 is something psychologists call social identity theory. Humans crave belonging, and sports offer one of the easiest shortcuts to it ever invented. A jersey, a chant, a shared enemy, an entire city united for one Sunday afternoon. Millions of people quietly build part of who they are around "we won" or "we lost," even though they never once touched the field themselves. So, what happens to the people who skip that shortcut entirely? They don't lose the need to belong. That need is human, and it never fully disappears. They just build it somewhere else, through ideas, through creative work, through small, niche communities held together by thought instead of team colors. Their identity isn't missing a piece. It's simply assembled from completely different material. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because none of this happens by accident. Reason 3 goes all the way back to childhood, to a window of time before most people can even remember forming a single opinion of their own. And what happened, or quietly didn't happen, inside that window may explain more about a person than they've ever consciously realized. Strong interests are built early and built through repetition. If a child grows up in a house where sports are on every single weekend, where a parent cheers, where a team's loss feels like a small family tragedy, the brain wires that excitement directly into memory before logic even gets a vote. But if that environment never existed, the brain simply never builds the emotional shortcut at all. As an adult, the games still play on every screen in the room, but nothing fires. There's no early memory to reach for, no emotional groove already carved into the brain from childhood. It's not rejection. It's simply a door that was never opened in time. But environment alone still doesn't explain everyone, because some people grew up surrounded by sports and still felt absolutely nothing at all. Which means there's something else running quietly underneath all of this. Something about how a person's mind actually prefers to think, independent of what they were raised around. This is reason 4, cognitive style. Some brains are naturally drawn to repetition, ritual, and shared spectacle. Others are drawn to abstraction, long-term thinking, patterns and problems that never resolve into a final score. To a mind like that, 90 repetitive minutes of the same format, week after week, season after season, can feel less like entertainment and more like static on a screen. These are often the minds pulled towards science, philosophy, art, or systems thinking, fields where the game never really ends, and the reward isn't a final whistle, but a slowly forming idea, built alone over years of quiet work. It's not that sports are beneath these people, and it's not arrogance either, whatever it might look like from the outside. It's that their brain is chasing a completely different kind of stimulation, one that rewards patience instead of a scoreboard. Which brings us to reason 5, and this one is emotional. Sports fandom is, by design, a roller coaster. Hope, tension, heartbreak, and euphoria. Some people genuinely love that ride, sometimes all in one single afternoon. The unpredictability is the whole appeal. It makes them feel alive in a way almost nothing else can. But for others, that exact same unpredictability doesn't feel like excitement at all. It feels like a cost, an emotional withdrawal they never agreed to make, for an outcome they can't control and will never get back. These people tend to guard their emotional energy carefully, almost instinctively, without ever consciously deciding to. They're not incapable of passion. That's the misconception. They simply choose where to spend it. Instead of pouring themselves into an outcome decided by strangers on a field, they invest in things that pay them back steadily. A craft, a skill, a slow, quiet project only they control. Stability isn't boring to a person like this. It's the entire point of how they've built their life. And now, the final piece, the one that quietly ties every other reason on this list together. Because underneath the brain chemistry, the childhood environment, the cognitive style, and the emotional preference, there's one single trait that predicts sports disinterest better than almost anything else combined. Independence of thinking. Psychologists have found a real, measurable link between low conformity, meaning being less influenced by what everyone around you happens to be doing at any given moment, and low interest in shared cultural obsessions, like sports. It's not that these people are rejecting sports specifically, out of spite or superiority. It's that they instinctively question anything the crowd assumes everyone should care about, on principle. That single trait quietly explains reasons 1 through 5, all at once, like a key that fits every lock on this list. The brain that doesn't chase the crowd's reward is the same brain that doesn't need the crowd's approval to feel whole. The identity that doesn't require a team is the same identity that was never built to borrow itself from a group. The mind that wanders was never going to sit still for someone else's script. So if you know someone who shrugs at the biggest game of the year, completely unmoved while an entire room erupts around them, understand this clearly. It was never a lack of passion. It's passion rerouted into music, into business, into ideas nobody else in the room has thought of yet, into a version of excitement that just happens to be completely invisible from inside a stadium. Not everyone is wired to roar with the crowd, and that was never a flaw that needed fixing in the first place. Some people are wired to sit quietly in the noise and build something the crowd hasn't even discovered yet. And the moment you understand that difference, you stop seeing disinterest as an absence of something and start seeing it for exactly what it really is: attention, simply spent somewhere else.